And what does that mean? Well, that means if your revenues are down 15 to 20%, hey, guess what? You've got to do something about your cost line, 15 to 20%, if not more. But you know what? That is not enough if you stay where you are. If you do not position yourself as media companies, and I guess I'm probably talking the media industry here overall, if you do not put yourself in a position to take advantage of an upturn, you won't get it. It's as simple as that. And so what are some of these challenges that we see? Well, some of the challenges that we see in particular are, if advertising isn't coming back in the same way, hang on a minute, now what do we do? Okay, so what's the consumer doing? Is the consumer willing to pay or not? Well, we know at the moment they're looking out for a good deal, which is why they're going online. Okay, but we also know that when they get their money back again, what did those consumers say? They said we will pay for quality, and they've also said that they will pay for premium content. Okay? I want quality. It came through numerous times when we did these interviews around the world this year. And so clearly, a lot more is going to have to be spent in terms of understanding what it is people will actually pay for, and where do they want it, and how are they going to pay for it. This is not easy, because then you've got to consider, well, okay, do we rely on the mobile phone companies to collect our money for us? Okay, they can bill, but can they really do anything else? Is it a micro-payment model? Is it a stored value model? Is it, I'll pay a subscription for all I can eat model, like the guy who buys his music on emusic.com and pays a flat fee? So the question is, really having to go back to the consumer, disaggregate the products that one's now thinking about, and saying, how do we now develop, how do we deliver them, and what is it that we will give for free, and what is it that we will actually make people pay for. If one gets that right, then one does position oneself for the upturn. If one just takes out the 15 to 20% of cost and thinks nothing's changing, then I'm not sure that company, those entities, will actually be in the place to take advantage of that upturn. That's why the message of this year's PwC Media Outlook is there is a story in the upturn, but it's all about structural change. And actually my slides have now disappeared, which is pretty good. That's okay, because there was only one more slide to go. So in terms of positioning for the upturn, what are we actually talking about? Defining what unique content is, and what are the revenue models associated with it. That means listening to the customer. There's also an element of making sure, there we go, that's the final slide, so if I went back one, doesn't matter, I can let that live anyway. The fact that there is some need for some tactical, there we go, for some tactical activity around cost cutting, the need to make sure one clearly understands what the local infrastructure plays, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about here, a solution for India is not the same as a solution for China. It's not the same as a solution for Hong Kong. It was very interesting. One of the previous speaker's slides, he was talking about internet penetration, the effect of brands. And where I live, Hong Kong was up the top right-hand corner. But actually, it may have 80-90% broadband penetration. But you know what? Only 2% of ad spend is actually online. So it's very important to understand the local infrastructure and the local culture and how people actually use media. What we're seeing a great deal of is people dissecting the value chain. Someone asked me last week, what does the value chain look like? Well, I said, it's still the value chain. The problem is there's lots of lines going all over it. Right? And there's hooks, this one doing something with this one, something like that. So the whole point of the value chain is it's there, but in order to take advantage of what's happening right now is people need to think completely across the value chain and identifying where the opportunities are. It may come through outright M&A, but quite frankly, I really doubt it. First of all, there's no money out there. Secondly, the banks certainly won't lend you any if you haven't already got it. And thirdly, unfortunately, although asset prices have reduced in the sector, there still isn't enough willing sellers at the price that buyers will buy. So do you know what? I'm not sure it's outright M&A, but what it is a whole load of collaborations and new business opportunities which are done to take advantage of the opportunity and minimise the risk. If you do something jointly, you share the risk. Okay, you share the returns as well, but in today's environment, risk sharing is pretty important. And the final point is obviously understanding the opportunities for cross-platform exploitation. If you do not do that, I believe you're fundamentally not following what the consumer is doing. The consumer is not loyal necessarily to one, and by the way, if they are, it's online, so you better stay there. But fundamentally, you have to look for whatever cross-platform opportunities there are for your intellectual property. So those are basically the major points of this year's outlook. And I've deliberately just left a bit of time in case anyone has any questions, because obviously 600 pages can't really be done justice to in half an hour. If you need more information, though, that's the website that you can download and access both the executive summary, this presentation, the video, and the full report. But I'm quite